Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 6 of Gakuto Mikumo's light novel series Strike the Blood. This one is released officially in English by Yen On. If you want to pick up your own copy, I do have links to Amazon.com and the book depository in the description down below. Using those links and purchasing anything through them earns a little bit of money towards the channel, so I really appreciate you helping me out. In this volume, we sort of returned the island back to status quo. Of course, in volumes 4 and 5, we had the big two-part story. It involved the island sort of being a bit more chaotic because of the sort of huge Halloween-type celebration that was going on. In this one, the chaos on the island actually is much more contained, and it involves the senior middle school students going on their class trip to the mainland. So we have a little bit more slice-of-life type stuffs in terms of Nagisa, Yukina, and Kanon getting things like picking up treats and going shopping and dragging Kojo along to carry their bags. So we get a little bit more of the return to status quo. However, this wouldn't be Strike the Blood without some villain showing up to ruin all of it. In this case, the villain, though, has ties to Kanon and to the destruction of her convent 5 years, which is a sort of mystery plot line that's been left dangling for a while now. So in this sense, it was cool to me to finally get back to sort of a storyline that I felt needed to be resolved. One of the things about Strike the Blood is that, at least some of my complaints, is that the story is very much a Monster of the Week type series. What we have seen so far is essentially slice-of-life-ish setup, bad guy shows up, Kojo fights, bad guy runs away, or Kojo runs away, or they barely just stalemate it. Development, plot, big battle, Kojo needs to drink someone's blood to get enough power to summon a new beast vessel, and then wins the day, and we call it a day, the end. And this book really doesn't change that up a whole lot. Like, that format is pretty much tried and true and is followed pretty much to the T in this one. As I said, the only thing that really kind of sets it apart is that instead of the villain showing up on the island having some nefarious scheme that, you know, really we've never heard anything of it before or has to do with something that we have no idea what it is. Instead, as I said, in this case, the villain shows up and it starts sort of answering some lingering questions and solving sort of some lingering mysteries, which for once made me feel like, okay, we're getting somewhere. We're moving ahead. There was also a lot more discussion, or a little bit more of the reveal in terms of Nagisa and what's been going on with her. Still not solved yet, although I'm pretty confident we're going to find that out in volume number 7. This seemed like those elements were kind of setting up for the reveals of book number 7, which I'm pretty excited about because it's going to be dealing with sort of solving some of the bigger mysteries in terms of, like, how did Kojo become the 4th primogenitor? So I'm looking forward to that volume, and at least in this regard with this volume, it made me feel like, okay, yeah, that's actually going to happen. We're actually going to get some answers because, like I said, in this one, we already start that process at least a little bit where we're getting a bit of closure on, what happened at the convent 5 years ago that caused such a stir. What has the government done with Kanon's father figure who turned her into a weapon? It starts answering some lingering questions. So in that regard, good, excellent, very good. Strike the Blood, of course, does what it always does very well. It has very good pacing, lots of good action. The action is written and paced fairly well. Although I kind of thought that the final battle was just a little too whoa, that happened quick. But aside from that, generally fairly good action sequences in the series. I kind of am just a little bit still bothered by the fact that the characters are still falling into their same old routines. We still have Yukina basically constantly accusing Kojo of being, she might as well just come out and call him a pervert, because every time he has some kind of a pratfall with a girl, she automatically assumes that it's the worst case scenario, that he caused it, or that, it's some kind of how his fault. We have all of the surrounding characters pretty much performing to their typical type. About the only thing that I think was a little bit different is, like in this one, Asagi, because there was really no big sort of event that she needed to participate in, she was much more sort of like the damsel in distress kind of thing. Not exactly the way it played out, but again, like her function in the story, she certainly wasn't as effective and action-oriented as she has been in other volumes. I mean, I think back to like the last volume where she was doing all of those sort of tricks to protect the child form of Natsuki, and, using the computer to sort of manipulate things. Like we really have had displays of just how capable and smart she is, and we don't get a lot of that in this one. Instead, she reverts to either being the mulling girl that wants to kind of hook up with Kojo, even though she's completely in denial of it. We have her basically used as the comedy of this girl who's really intelligent and really capable in so many ways, but being an utter failure in what, are sort of the typical girlfriend things, like she can't cook and that kind of stuff, which, I mean, honestly, I don't know, guys. Wouldn't you rather have like a super hacker girlfriend who gets paid huge money in her teenage years? And like, do you really care if she can cook? I mean, really? Like, she can take you out to a restaurant. Who cares? I'm just saying. Just saying. In any case, so, the book really does. Overall, it just falls right back into the patterns that we've seen in Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, and even though it was told over 2 parts in Volumes 4 and 5, let's face it, it was pretty much the same pattern. So for the most part, we still have that cookie-cutter pattern. We don't see a lot of real development in terms of the characters and their relationships, but at the very least, we finally have a villain that ties into events that have already happened. We finally have answers to some questions that have been left dangling for a couple of volumes. And it kind of makes me at least hopeful that, yes, we're going to get some real answers in volume number 7. And potentially what those answers reveal may just set this series in motion to be something a little bit bigger and a little bit different, as opposed to the by the numbers that we have seen so far. So all in all, if you've liked Strike the Blood to this point, I really can't see any reason why you would hate volume number 6 or dislike it. As I said, there's certain elements of it that I thought are actually a little bit better, because at least the Monster of the Week isn't just some random thing. It ties into the story. So if you like the series to this date, you'll probably like this volume. And absolutely, there are still very key events in here that you're going to have to read if you want to go forward. But does this book make me say, hey, you absolutely have to get this series and read it and love it? Well, it doesn't really change my mind a whole lot about the series at this point. I am very interested, though, to see how Volume 7 is. I have heard from quite a few people that have felt the same way that I do, that, the series is, it's dependable. That's what this series is. It's dependable. You can depend on Strike the Blood to be Strike the Blood. If you've liked it to this point, you can pretty much count on it being that. But I've heard a lot of people that have felt that way about the series say that Volume 7 actually was one of the best volumes so far, and that it did try to break out of its shell a little bit. And so I'm pretty excited to read Volume 7, and especially since it's going to be dealing with the biggest mystery that I have been most interested in, which is just how the heck did Kojo become the 4th primogenitor, and what is going on with his sister. So overall, another volume of Strike the Blood. It is what it is. If you like it, you'll like this one. And as I said, I do have Volume 7 actually on my shelf because I'm a little bit behind on this series. So hopefully I'll be reading that one before Volume 8 comes out and I get even further behind. So those are my thoughts on volume number 6 of Strike the Blood. My next review is going to be actually on an older light novel series, the first volume of that series. This one has just been released in ebook format by 7 Seas. They certainly didn't license a lot of this series. I think they only licensed like the first 3 books. I'm kind of fingers crossed that if people get into this series and start reading it, maybe we'll get more of the series. But this one I'm excited to read because this is the series that most people say is the father of the light novel, modern light novel in terms of its format and stories and how it's written. And that is Boogiepop and Others. So volume number 1 of the Boogiepop Phantom series. You know, this was one of those, I think this was actually one of the first anime that was based on what was considered a light novel. Yes, we've had novel translations such as, you know, Legend of Galactic Heroes, but this I think was one of the first times that they took a novel that was considered a light novel, not a classic of genre, Japanese genre, and made it into an anime series. And I remember the anime series being kind of cool and a little bit trippy, so I'm looking forward to checking this book out. That's going to be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you all for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.